Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When the Death Star exploded, there was hardly any warning. An Imperial engineer by the name of Galen Erso was the architect of this battle station and entrusted with the safety and lives of over 750,000 of the finest Imperial officers, pilots, scientists, and soldiers. Instead of fulfilling the sacred duty given to him by the Emperor, Galen Erso engineered a tiny defect in the battle station, a critical weakness that could endanger the structural integrity of the entire vessel. This knowledge was smuggled out of a high-security Imperial research facility by one of Erso's associates and eventually given to the terrorists in the Alliance to restore the Republic. The rebel insurgents would use that important knowledge to carry out an attack on the DS-1 orbital battle station. They would target the ventilation shaft leading to the reactor with a proton torpedo, setting off a massive chain explosion that was impossible to survive. Other than a few TIE fighters flying around on the exterior of the station, all hands were lost. The individual stationed on the Death Star were not normal Imperials, they were the best in their respective fields and professions. The best officers, the best pilots, even the best maintenance crews. The Death Star was supposed to represent the might of the Empire. It was supposed to inspire all those who served in the Galactic Navy and Army and instill fear into the hearts of the Empire's enemies. It was supposed to be the ultimate deterrent and stabilize the galaxy for many generations to come. And Emperor Palpatine most likely had it destroyed on purpose. Yes, sheeple, open your eyes. The Death Star was an inside job. When Palpatine took control of the Republic and transitioned it into the Empire, it was the accumulation of many decades of hard work, patience, and strategy. Darth Sidious and his mentor had slowly chipped away at the stability and institutions guarding the Republic, starting from the Outer Rim and slowly working their way corewards. Eventually, the Republic was facing so much chaos, the cry for change and action propelled the senator from Naboo into the Chancellor position. This was always the easiest part of Palpatine's journey. Gaining control of an already corrupt and crumbling Republic was not that challenging in itself. Very few individuals actually wanted that difficult job. The larger issue, the one that had been plaguing the Old Republic since its creation, was how could a government control an entire galaxy and keep all of its client states safe? The Old Republic never had enough ships to watch and protect their entire territory. It oftentimes relied on a mix of a small federal fleet combined with planetary, local, and corporate defense forces. It was an imperfect system that left many Outer Rim planets open to attack from pirates and unidentified Xeno scum. For this reason, the Outer Rim was always a hotspot for political upheaval and rebellion. They were paying plenty of taxes, but not enjoying the protection and services afforded to citizens in the Inner Rim. Emperor Palpatine's original philosophy for maintaining control in the galaxy was to rapidly expand the Imperial military and then replace a large chunk of the galactic economy with the military-industrial complex run by the Empire. The problem, of course, was this style of expansion was unsustainable from an economic standpoint and led to unpopular policies like mining protected sanctuary worlds, enslaving lesser alien species for manual labor, and creating pockets of economic despair and shortages of essential goods and supplies. Even though at its peak the Imperial Navy was probably the largest fleet in galactic history, it still wasn't large enough to cover the expansive territory that the Galactic Empire ruled. But then the Tarkin Doctrine was created by Grand Moff Wilhoth Tarkin. Now, Wilhoth Tarkin came from a very dangerous planet known as Yaradu. His family had first settled on the planet many generations ago when it was still wild and completely untamed. The Tarkin family had a coming-to-age tradition where the young men in the family would be sent into the wilderness and basically have to fend for themselves against all sorts of extremely dangerous apex predators for a prolonged period of time. Getting chased around in the wilderness by the Star Wars equivalent of Ligers and being armed with nothing more than a spear will definitely change your worldview. This experience gifted Wilhoth Tarkin with the same things that all the Tarkin men developed around his age: PTSD and major trust issues. So it's not surprising that Tarkin's platform for governing features a very negative and pessimistic view of the citizens he's governing. The main principle behind the Tarkin Doctrine was that the best way to ensure peace and stability was to make the price of rebellion and resistance exorbitantly high. Basically, Wilhoth Tarkin, like his child-abusing uncle, believed in ruling by fear. The Emperor had originally wanted the Death Star to be a physical reminder of the power of the dark side. It was the ultimate sign of Sith dominance and only became a very important part of the Galactic Empire's military strategy after the Tarkin Doctrine was incorporated. Once Wilhelm Tarkin realized that the Death Star was operational and actually working, his focus was to test it on unruly worlds with a heavy rebel presence. But instead of creating fear and destruction, Jeddah became a battle cry for the rebel pathfinders who volunteered for a suicide mission on Scarif. And then the destruction of Scarif became the inspiration the rebels needed on Yavin 4 to attempt to destroy the Death Star. But the most critical mistake that Wilhelm Tarkin made was targeting and destroying Alderaan. It's true that Alderaan was hiding several large weapons caches and terrorist cells, but Alderaan was one of the most beloved planets in the galaxy and potentially the ancestral home of all of humanity. It was a place of art, literature, philosophy, and very much a cultural center in the galaxy. Many Imperials were shocked by the destruction of Alderaan, especially the ones that were actually from Alderaan and had family members vaporized on the planet. Instead of scaring off various insurgent movements in the galaxy, the destruction of Alderaan united the various insurgent groups into a unified rebel alliance, which ultimately led to the rebellion's attack on Scarif. You see, the destruction of Alderaan was exactly what the rebellion needed to grow. With morale at an all-time low in the Imperial military and the general population questioning the actions of the Emperor, Palpatine had to move quick or risk losing control of the galaxy. He had already recalled all of the senators into the Galactic Senate and dissolved that branch of government after finding out Senator Organa of Alderaan was a traitor. But that itself probably wasn't enough to preserve the stability of the Empire. There were already rumors of mass defection amongst the Imperial ranks. And people were beginning to question if Alderaan was actually a viable military target. Even though there clearly were terrorist cells operating on Alderaan, the 2 billion other individuals living on the planet were clearly innocent, and more importantly, 95% of them were human and not some disgusting alien. The Empire needed a cause to unite around, a justification for their actions, and that came with the Battle of Yavin. The Battle of Yavin and the destruction of the Death Star was the perfect event to refocus the attention of the galaxy on just how evil and dangerous the rebellion could be. And so shortly after the destruction of the Death Star by the rebellion, all across the Empire you had soldiers and citizens denouncing the rebellion and their terrorist actions and the mass murder of so many people. It also should be noted that there were probably field trips on the Death Star at the time of its explosion, so you can add targeting children to the long list of criminal actions made by the Rebel Alliance. The destruction of the Death Star delayed the downfall of the Empire for several more years. It gave the Empire a renewed energy to fight against chaos and insurgents. Shortly after the Battle of Yavin, the Mid-Rim offensive was carried out by the rebellion, but they overreached and were soon in a full retreat. By the time the Battle of Hoth had started, the rebellion was in really bad shape. Recruitment had dwindled, and any momentum that they had gained from the destruction of the Death Star had now been lost. When people talk about the Battle of Yavin, they oftentimes think of David versus Goliath. Essentially, what you have are 20 X-Wings and 7 Y-Wings versus a moon-sized battle station with a massive amount of weapons emplacements and a huge complement of starfighters. If you think it's unbelievable that the rebels would prevail in this situation, then you're most likely right. I mean, in real life, usually the Davids lose to the Goliaths. The Death Star could have easily scrambled hundreds of TIE fighters out of its hangars to destroy the rebel fighters way before they even reached the structure's magnetosphere. The turbo lasers could have picked off the enemy starfighters from thousands of miles away, but they don't even open fire until the rebels are flying through the trenches. Of course, Wilhelm Tarkin is in charge of the station, and his arrogance and stupidity are clearly a huge reason why the Death Star was left so unprotected. But at the same time, without knowledge of the Death Star's huge weakness, the rebels also wouldn't have been able to do enough damage to the battle station to stop it from blowing up their base on Yavin's moon. And while Wilhelm Tarkin seems like he doesn't know what's going on, Darth Vader definitely leaves at a very convenient time and somehow survives this massive attack. So I believe that the Empire knew all about Galen Erso's plan to sabotage the Death Star. This was a project that cost a significant percentage of the entire galaxy's GDP, so you can be sure that a large amount of personnel were assigned to this project. Galen Erso's loyalty had already been in question after he ran away from his post and went into hiding. There's no way they wouldn't have engineers around the clock checking his work and making sure that his designs were not only functional but also safe. And because this project took over 20 years to design and build, they had plenty of time to check all of the features put in there by Galen Erso. If the Empire didn't know about the Death Star's weakness, they surely would have noticed something after the rebels stole its blueprints from the Scarif archives. So there you have it, guys. That's our theory on why the Death Star's destruction was an inside job. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below. Also, check us out on Facebook for more content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.